Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto leaves Konoha at the age of 6 for the prospect of a better life? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto was in a somber mood today. It was actually not something rare in his life. He'd go to the academy, tell all the kids that he'd become the Hokage someday, then fail miserably at everything and become nothing but everyone's laughing stock. He'd put on a big show and pretend it's no big deal, pretend he didn't hear their snickering behind his back, pretend he wasn't interested in their soccer games as he watched them play from atop a swing nearby. He would announce his dream all over again the next day, because at least they'd give him a moment of attention. But that feeling of loneliness felt like a boulder tied to his chest, as if he was slowly sinking to the bottom of the world because of it. Kurama felt something he had not felt in a while. He wasn't sure what it was, but something about the boy reminded him of himself. Was it the loneliness that they shared? Was it the way they were both stripped of their dignity? Or was it how they just wanted someone who would understand their pain and sorrow? Either way, Kurama was not too pleased to be feeling this, but he knew what he had to do. After making sure he still had enough of the money the third Hokage gave him to get by for the rest of the month, Naruto went to bed. Tired, alone and with no plans for tomorrow except repeating everything in his mundane daily routine. He felt his eyelids get heavy and drifted into sleep. But this time he didn't wake up to the morning sun. Instead he found himself standing in a sewer-like place, a long dark hallway with water dripping from pipes everywhere. Naruto was bewildered, but strangely he wasn't scared. Something out of the ordinary made him a little excited. "Come here, brat," a large growling voice echoed through the void. Naruto jumped and turned around, only to see a gigantic fox-like creature towering over him in the middle of a cavern. Frightened, Naruto asked, "Who are you, and what do you want?" Kurama answered in his deep demonic voice, "I am the nine-tailed fox. I've come to make a deal, brat." Naruto was confused. What kind of deal? The kind that will benefit us both. And what is that? Kurama replied, "I know you've got no one in your life. No parents, no siblings, no friends. You have to fend for yourself because no one takes care of you. You have no one to talk to in the academy or even at home." Naruto's legs felt shaky. He had been trying so hard to act tough, but now he couldn't keep pretending that he was alright anymore. Kurama continued, "I'll help you with that, and you'll help me in return. I'll be your friend, but you'll have to use my chakra whenever I tell you to." Naruto's face lit up. "Really? You'll be my friend?" Kurama didn't know how to feel about the new name, but decided to let it slide. "Yes. But there's one problem." "What is it?" Kurama huffed. "Konoha. They would never allow you to use my chakra unless a war breaks out between the nations. You should leave the village." Naruto seemed reluctant. "Naruto. But Konoha is my home," Kurama bellowed, "and what good has it done you, brat? They hate you because I'm sealed inside you." Naruto's eyes widened. Suddenly it all dawned on him. Is that the kid? Yes, it's him. That monster. We never know when it will come out again. Don't approach him. It's the best we can do. All those whispers between strangers who pulled their kids behind them while eyeing Naruto warily. They make perfect sense now. So that's why they hate me. Dumbfounded, tears began to well up in Naruto's eyes. "Of course. So let's leave this place and forge a new life for yourself," said Kurama. Naruto looked up at Kurama again. "But what about old man Hokage? He is good to me. I can't just betray him like that." Kurama narrowed his eyes in annoyance. "All that geezer has ever done is put some money on your table. It's not a betrayal to leave a place where nobody welcomes you, is it?" "Well, no, but, no buts. People have only treated you with fear and distaste. And they dare ask you to serve them. You're not a person to this village, you're merely a weapon. The only reason you aren't beaten to death is because the Hokage wants you alive. As a deterrent to possible invaders." Naruto couldn't believe what he had just been told. No way. I'm not just some weapon. Kurama scoffed. Accept the cruel truth. They only see me in you, and I'm nothing but a wild beast to them. Quote. Wait a minute. Naruto frowned. He remembered hearing about a disaster that nearly destroyed Konoha years ago. Someone at the mask shop mentioned a demon fox. That was because you attacked the village, right? Exclamation mark. So this is all your fault? He exclaimed. Kurama snarled. Do not blame me, brat. That blasted Madara Uchiha had me under his control. I want to get out of this cursed land and so should you. Naruto froze at the raging big fox. So, you didn't do it willingly. He decided he had better not question the fox's innocence. Kurama was losing patience. Yes, brat, so stop whining and listen to me. Naruto pondered his choices. Stay here where he is avoided like the plague or go somewhere else where he could have a better life. The choice was obvious. Naruto. All right deal, Mr. Fox. Naruto ran. He ran faster than he could have ever imagined. He felt his heart pump with excitement, and the air was fresher than ever. He ran along a stream where he used to fish in case he'd run out of water and food. He ran all day, until his lungs felt like burning and his muscles couldn't bear the increasing pain. Finally he collapsed by a tree in the forest far to the east of Konoha. Kurama was a little amazed by Naruto's stamina, then he remembered that Naruto was half Uzumaki after all. The Hokage has already given you your monthly allowance. He won't check on you until next month, so no one will notice you're gone until then. If you run like that every day, you will be out of the land of fire in no time, Kurama assured Naruto. Naruto panted heavily, trying to catch his breath. Once you make up your mind, you go all out for it, huh? Kurama thought to himself. Get some rest, brat. You need it. Having not gotten a good sleep in the unfamiliar place, Naruto woke up at daybreak feeling anxious, and just like the day before, he ran as fast as he could. He knew he had to get out of the land of fire as soon as possible. Nobody would care if he didn't go to the academy, but since he was supposed to be Konoha's important weapon, he'd be in big trouble if they found out he had left the village. Kurama had told him to go to the land of water. Since there is a sea between the two nations, it would be hard to track him once he crossed the sea. With all his might Naruto ran all day, barely stopping to drink or eat, and by nightfall he was out of his country. His clothes were muddy from all the sweat and dirt, but he didn't care. He was going to find another ninja village and become a ninja. He still wanted to be a ninja after all. Where are we now? Naruto asked. Kurama said, I believe we are now out of Konoha's reach. Naruto rejoiced at the answer, really? It was shorter than I expected, haha. You can take it easy now, but still watch out for any signs of danger, Kurama said. He decided it was time to let Naruto relax a bit. 3 days had passed since Naruto crossed the borders and arrived at the land of hot springs. The weather here was pretty nice and warm. Squirrels and quails could be found in the woods. Naruto learned with Kurama's help how to hunt, partly because he wanted to save some of the instant ramen he had brought. He finally got to take a bath in a hot spring along the way, which felt like a luxury. This day Naruto was trying to capture a hare when he bumped into someone. Ouch. Sorry. Mister, oh hey you're my age. Naruto looked up at the boy, who jumped back immediately, hands ready in defense. Hi there. I'm Naruto. I've been traveling and I'm going to Kurigakure. Are you traveling, too? What's your name? Naruto was so delighted to see another kid after surviving the wilds on his own that he dropped his guards completely. Surprised by how frank Naruto was, the boy lowered his arms and replied, Kimaro. I'm Kimaro. Naruto laughed. That's a cool name. Where are you from? Kimaro looked away. It's not a very good place. Oh, well sorry. Naruto realized he was being too blunt to a complete stranger. Kimimaro stood hunching a little. He was wearing tattered clothes and carrying a crumpled knapsack over his shoulder. Naruto noticed the melancholic expression on Kimimaro's good-looking face. His gut told him that the boy he had just met was also lonely like himself. Say, I could use some company, why don't you come with me? Naruto asked with a friendly smile. Kimimaro looked at him perplexed. How did you know? His voice faltered. That I don't know where to go, Kimimaro asked in his mind. Well, I would not recommend going in the direction you were heading, Kimimaro said with a frown. Naruto scratched his head. You see, I'm from Konohagakure, but I can't go back to the land of fire. I'm kinda in exile now, haha. The blonde boy's optimistic attitude sparked Kimimaro's curiosity. I see from your running speed that you are not just a civilian. You haven't graduated from Ninja Academy, have you? Kimimaro asked. You're right, but I will become a ninja no matter what. So I was thinking about going to another ninja village. I want to get the best training and become very strong, Naruto said and punched the air. How about going to the land of Earth? If you want good training, choose a village from the 5 great nations, Kimimaro suggested. Only shinobi who have undergone rigid training can show true strength. Anyone who tries to challenge them by sheer violence would only be exterminated. He knew that all too well. The land of Earth. Sounds great. It would be a safe place for both of us, Naruto grinned. Kimimaro snapped back from his memories. Yeah, I guess. Then what are we waiting for? Let's head out. Naruto started running again, then stopped and turned back at Kimimaro. Hurry up, Kimimaro. Having not been called by his name in a while, Kimimaro was a little stunned. The boy looked 6 years old at most, 2 years younger than Kimimaro himself, and yet he was so independent and ambitious. Coming, Naruto. Kimimaro smiled and caught up. The balmy breeze, the gurgling clear creeks, and the bright green treetops that dappled the sunlight. Everything was so idyllic in the land of hot springs. Rugged hills and icy lakes were all Kimimaro had ever known back in his bleak misty homeland. They had been following a broad trail through the forest for a couple of hours. Naruto was bragging about how he ran non-stop and so fast that he got out of the land of fire in 2 days, including how he didn't need an alarm clock to get up early, and how he only slept for 5 hours and ate 2 cups of instant ramen each day but still ran at top speed. Kimimaro nodded and praised Naruto's achievements in response, but he didn't feel like sharing what his journey was like. Choosing the cheapest and shortest route, he took the ferry that plied across the treacherous straits within the remains of Uzushiogakure and felt nauseous as the creaky ship struggled to pass through numerous whirlpools. Naruto stopped talking when his stomach grumbled. I'm hungry. Nods, let's take a rest and grab a bite, Kimimaro said and laid down his knapsack beside a tree. Naruto offered to go look for food. I can go catch some animals for meat, I know how to hunt. Then I'll gather materials to make a campfire. We'll meet here again in 30 minutes, Naruto said and went off confidently. Alright. Kimimaro began searching. The ground looked a bit damp, so finding dry leaves and twigs was a little difficult, but Kimimaro was experienced in starting a fire where everything is wet. Spruce, fir and pine needles can stay relatively dry due to their shape and are therefore good for tinder. Adding birch bark to the sticks and branches make for highly flammable kindling. Oak is best suited for firewood because it burns slowly. Just shave off the surface to expose the dry interior. Hey, Kimimaro, look what I've got. Naruto came running back with a dead bird in one hand and a nest in another. Kimimaro's movement stopped just before he was about to deal with the oak logs he had brought back. He almost shot out a knife straight from his palm. No, he can't reveal his ability under any circumstances. Even if the boy seemed nicer than anyone he had met. I found a wild chicken. Naruto beamed with pride as he showed Kimimaro a ruffed grouse and a nest of bird eggs. Wow, you're good at hunting. Kimimaro didn't expect that Naruto would come back quickly. They began cooking right away. Wait, first dig 2 perpendicular ditches, then build the fire at the center of the cross, Kimimaro said. That way the fire will be well ventilated and adaptable to any wind direction. Ignite the base of the pile of tinder from here, the fire climbs up and moves faster from the windward side, he added when Naruto struck a match. This fire is bigger than what I can make. You're so smart, Kimimaro. Naruto said as he admired the dancing flames. It's nothing, said Kimimaro. After roasting the grouse and cooking its eggs above the fire in a wooden pot that Kimimaro carved out with Naruto's kunai, they forgot the cataracts of perspiration running down their backs and finally sat down to eat. What made the food delectable was not only hunger, but also happiness that came from sharing a meal with someone. The two boys enjoyed each other's company under the gently swaying canopy. The next 2 days were about the same. Kimimaro and Naruto kept heading northwest. Whenever they paused to look for food, Kimimaro would show Naruto tips on how to forage in smarter ways, setting traps for crayfish and minnows instead of grabbing them by hand, stepping on the bottom branches when picking clumps of blackberries among the sprawling brambles to avoid getting scratched up by their thorns, and identifying beech trees to find chanterelles beneath the fern groves that grow beside them. How do you know they are safe to eat? Naruto asked warily. Chanterelles are perfectly edible. They have this golden color and funnel-like shape. You can only find them beside certain trees, but they never grow directly on wood. Kimimaro plucked one and turned it upside down. Instead of gills, they have decurrent forked folds. And if we split them in half? He tore it apart. You can see that the stem is solid instead of hollow, and the flesh is white. Most importantly, they smell like apricots. Naruto sniffed and marveled at the meaty mushroom that gave off a fruity aroma. Yum. I bet they're tasty. They collected the chanterelles in their bags to save for later and set off again. Naruto started humming a little tune. As long as I'm with Kimimaro, I'll never have to worry about dying from poisonous food, he said gleefully. Kimimaro looked at Naruto a little flattered. Maybe something good came out of the cramps and diarrhea he got from eating false chanterelles that time. As stars twinkled in the navy blue sky, Kimimaro and Naruto settled themselves on a patch of soft grass. Traveling is fun, Naruto sighed in content with his hands tucked under his head. Yeah, never had Kimimaro imagined that he would feel safe roving the world, and that the sense of security came from being with a kid younger than himself. Something glowing in the darkness caught Kimimaro's eye. It was a striped wintergreen. 2 drooping white flowers bloomed at the top of a single peduncle that arose from a whorl of 3 lanceolate leaves. Each fragrant flower had 5 recurved petals, resembling a crown. Kimimaro had thought the striped wintergreen only grew solitary flowers, and identified himself with the short evergreen herb. But today he discovered that 2 or more flowers can grow on one stalk, which he found enlightening. Naruto, do you like flowers? Kimimaro turned his head back to the boy lying next to him, but Naruto was already fast asleep. I do. Especially when they grow in clusters, Kimimaro said to himself. Naruto was sharing his hunting experiences gained in the past week, like how it was hard to detect the ruffed grouse bobbing about in the thicket due to its camouflage, and he had to listen for the drumming sound of the rapidly beating wings to locate the ground-dwelling bird. Of course, he left out the fact that Kurama had taught that to him. Kimimaro realized that Naruto hadn't asked anything about him despite the boy's manifest curious nature. He wondered if Naruto was considerately avoiding that on purpose. Well, he supposed it wouldn't be a good idea to ask why Naruto was in exile, either. As dusk fell, the air around them became more humid. Kimimaro, do you smell something, Kimimaro? Naruto frowned and asked. What made Kimimaro frown was not the pungent smell of sulfur, but the noises that seemed to come from where thick steam rose up into the purple-pink sky. He could hear people laughing and shouting in the distance. Naruto, just a reminder, don't reveal your identity to anyone you meet, Kimimaro said. I won't. Naruto remembered the day they met and laughed. The trail led into a valley, where a bridge spanned the gap between 2 cliffs. At its end stood a torii gate, a brass plaque hanging from the top. Welcome to Yugakure no Sato, village hidden in the hot springs. Beyond the gate stretched a shopping street. Hordes of people who looked like travelers swarmed the avenue. Naruto was thrilled by the lively crowds, but Kimimaro remained wary. The complete lack of guards at the entrance struck him as suspicious. They passed a myriad of shops offering traditional crafts and snacks. Some sold souvenirs, lanterns, parasols, dolls, sandals, and chopsticks, while others sold street foods like shrimp tempura, matcha dango, unagi rice balls, and soybean biscuits, their rich aromas drifting through the air. Families on vacation indulged in shopping sprees, their arms weighed down with bags of purchased goods. Ninjas with headbands of all villages casually strolled past each other. Kimaro wasn't used to the harmonious atmosphere. It was very different from that of his hometown, where everyone always seemed all wound up for a fight. As they walked through the bustling street, Naruto's eyes lingered wistfully on the tantalizing food stands, until something else caught his attention. Stopping in front of a wall of festival masks, he rested a hand on a dark orange kitsune mask, one he had never seen back in Konoha, but resembling the big fox inside him. Had he never noticed it before, or did Konoha's shops simply not sell them? Maybe they avoided orange kitsune masks because they reminded people of the Nine Tails attack. Hey, kid, see something you like? A voice called from over the counter. Naruto quickly pulled his hand away. No, sir. Just looking. Gotta go. Ah, you'd look adorable in that mask. Go get your mom and dad to buy it for you, the shopkeeper said with a warm smile. Oh, Naruto spluttered. He had never been welcomed in a shop before, much less encouraged to come back. Before he could respond, Kimaro stepped forward. Sir, do you know where we can find the cheapest place to stay around here? Oh, you've asked the right person. The man grinned. My friend runs a resort hotel just 3 blocks away, Kawaii Spa. Huge outdoor hot spring pool, best rates in town. Is there one without hot springs? We just need a bed, Kimaro asked. The shopkeeper looked puzzled. No hot springs. That's what visitors come here for. Where are you kids from? We, spent too much on a nice bath last night, so we're looking for something cheaper, Kimaro replied. Never mind. Thanks for the suggestion, sir. Without another word, he took Naruto's hand and led him away. They bought a bag of baked potatoes for dinner because according to the vendor, potatoes grew in abundance throughout the country, making them the cheapest option. After filling their rumbling stomachs, they booked a bunk room at Kawaii Spa for the night. Since there wasn't an in-suite bathroom, Naruto headed to the public restroom, while Kimimaro returned to the lobby to ask for a map and some water. How was your day in Yugakure? Asked the convivial hostess. The potatoes are delicious, Kimimaro answered, and the hostess chuckled. And the people here, they look so peaceful and carefree. There's laughter around every corner. Of course, said the hostess, her eyes glittering with pride. We aren't called the village that has forgotten wars for nothing. The village that has forgotten wars? Kimimaro echoed, astonished that such a place could even exist. The Hot Springs daimyo declared that we are no longer a combat-related village. Our country boasts the best hot springs in the world, and we welcome tourists from everywhere. Foreign shinobi can put aside the burdens of fighting and killing, and heal their bodies and souls in our mineral-rich waters, she explained. That sounds wonderful, Kimimaro murmured. He had always felt like an outsider among the Kagaya clan, battle-hungry barbarians who reveled in bloodshed. The thought of staying in a village like this, where even ninjas could rest and forget about war, felt almost too good to be true. Naruto hadn't had a proper, relaxed moment on a toilet in a long time, and emptying his bowels felt like heaven. He was about to return to their bunk room when he heard a sudden scream. Come over to my deluxe king room, I promise you a splendid night, young lady, said a sinister-looking man, gripping the wrist of a young woman who struggled to pull away. I have a husband. He'll be back any moment, the woman warned. That's the same lie I hear from most women, the man laughed. Now come with me, or I'll just carry you. People passing through the hallway glanced at the commotion, but no one stepped in. The man began dragging the woman away from the entrance of the public bathhouse. She yelped and tugged frantically, screaming for help. Yet still, nobody intervened. Hey, you, stop. Leave her alone, or I'll beat you up. Naruto shouted. The man turned his head to him. Bahaha, what's a little squirt like you gonna do? Piss off. Naruto charged. Ha! He threw a punch, only for the man to take the hit with a nonchalant shrug. He grabbed Naruto by the collar and flung him across the hallway. Naruto hit the ground hard, groaning as pain shot through his body. He stood up, grimacing, preparing to charge again, when a familiar voice rang out from behind. Hey, Mom, sorry we kept you waiting. Kimaro came running toward the woman, waving, then paused, turning back to point at a tall, muscular man approaching from the far end of the hallway. Dad's over there. The man saw the kid's father and scowled. Guess it wasn't a lie. Releasing the woman, he spun on his heel and quickly disappeared down the corridor. Are you alright? Kimaro asked. I'm okay. Thanks for coming, Naruto said. Thank you so much for saving me, that was so clever of you. The woman cried. My pleasure. And you too, you were very brave, she smiled, bending down to gently pat Naruto's head. He beamed at her. Naruto, you knew you wouldn't stand a chance against him, Kimaro said with a worried look. But nobody was going to help. All the grown-ups just turned away, Naruto protested. I think it's just the culture of this village, the woman said with a sigh. People here are woefully indifferent to a stranger's plea for help. My aunt was robbed last year while on vacation here, and no one chased after the robber until a ninja from Kumogakure retrieved her wallet. I probably won't visit this place again. Kimimaro frowned. I thought Yugakure was the best place to live. There's a flaw in Yugakure's pursuit of peace, she explained. People avoid getting involved in conflicts to maintain harmony, but in doing so, they become indifferent rather than truly peaceful. I would never want to be a ninja in Yugakure, Naruto muttered. The woman smiled. It's getting late. Your parents must be worried. She reached into her bag and pulled out a melon bun, handing it to Naruto. I'm sorry, this is all I have. Hurry back to your family. And stay safe. Kimimaro watched as Naruto accepted the bun with a bright grin, as if a simple treat could wash away the risk he had put himself in. The way Naruto had thrown himself into danger without hesitation amazed him. Naruto believed in doing the right thing and acted even when no one else would. Back in their room, Kimimaro and Naruto sat on the bottom bunk. This bun should be yours, Kimimaro. You saved that lady. No, you were the one who stood up to that man first. They stared at each other for a second and giggled. I guess we can share, Naruto said and tore the bun in half. Here you go. The melon bun tasted better than anything they had eaten. Naruto and Kimimaro departed the land of hot springs and continued on their way to the land of earth. The two boys grew close as they traveled, talking about the flora and fauna they saw along the way. This afternoon, Kimimaro was telling Naruto what his favorite species among aquatic flowers were when they simultaneously stopped walking and gasped at something in the distance. On top of a plateau, a gigantic tree stood like an ancient sentinel, its verdant canopy stretching far above the surrounding forest, making all other trees look like mere saplings. In front of the tree, a fine ribbon of water draped over the cliff's edge, cascading down in a graceful, continuous fall. Wow, I've never seen a tree that big before. Naruto marveled. Or a waterfall that tall. Kimimaro stood in awe of the magnificent sight. We're almost at Takigakure, right? Naruto looked over at the map Kimimaro was holding. Yes, the entrance should be at the base of that waterfall, Kimimaro answered. But I'm not sure we can go inside the village. Only Yugakure welcomes tourists. We can just stop by the waterfall. I want to take a closer look at it. Alright. Arriving at the base of the waterfall where water plunged into a frothy pond, they took deep breaths of the invigorating air, enriched with negative ions produced by the collision of water particles. The soft murmur of the tumbling water they had heard from afar was now a steady roar that reverberated through the forest. As the sun broke through the clouds, a rainbow arched across the misty spray of the waterfall, creating an ethereal glow. This place is beautiful, Kimimaro said with a sigh of admiration. Naruto took off his sandals and dipped his foot into the pool. The water is so cool and refreshing. Be careful, it may be deeper than it seems. The two sat down beside the pond and splashed around, sending more ripples across the already ruffled surface of the water. Enclosing the waterfall, the rocky terrain was covered in lush green moss and ferns that thrived in the perpetual moisture. Birds flitted through the trees, their chirping barely audible against the overpowering sound of rushing water. For a moment, neither of them felt the weight of their past or the uncertainty of their future. Here, in nature's soothing presence, they felt calm, enjoying the serenity that wrapped around them like a gentle embrace. Isn't this supposed to be Taki's entrance? I don't see any gates, Kimimaro wondered, scanning their surroundings. Let's look around. Maybe it's nearby, Naruto suggested. They got up and wandered through the woods for a while, the sky darkening into a rich, velvety blue that melded with the dark silhouettes of the trees. Rustlings and soft hoots filled the air as nocturnal creatures awakened from their slumber. After pausing for dinner, they continued their search, climbing a small hill where they stumbled upon an inn for travelers visiting the waterfall. Deciding to rest for the night, the two boys booked a room and walked down the creaky hallway. They unlocked the door, only to find an unexpected guest. A girl about their age, with messy dark pink hair, was sprawled out on one of the single beds. The moment she noticed them, she shot up, her expression tense, like she'd been caught. After only a second of hesitation, she bolted toward them and tried to shove them out the door. Hey, this room should be ours. Naruto shouted in confusion from behind the half-closed door. Kimimaro pushed against the door along with Naruto and said, "Sorry, but we have the key, it's no use trying to push us out." The girl gritted her teeth and kept pushing. "If you keep this up, we'll just call the innkeeper and let him handle it," Kimimaro added. The girl froze, her shoulders slumping as she realized she couldn't win. With a reluctant sigh, she stepped back and let them in. She hurried to grab her bag and was about to sneak out the window through which she had entered when Naruto called, "Wait, you can stay too. There's enough space for all of us." The girl turned to look at him, her brown eyes filled with disbelief. "You serious?" "Yeah, if you don't mind," Naruto assured her. "We wanted a smaller, cheaper room, but all the others were full. It wouldn't be a waste of money if we share it with someone else." The girl's eyes widened, clearly shocked by the generosity. "You can have that bed. Kimimaro and I can share the other," Naruto added. The girl looked between the beds and then back at Naruto. She walked over and sat back on the bed she'd been lying on, plopping her bag on the floor beside it, a silent acceptance of the offer. Naruto put his bag on the luggage rack and sat down on the other bed. "So, what's your name?" "I'm Naruto, and he's Kimimaro." She looked suspiciously at him. "I ain't telling you my damn name, shrimp." Naruto had to resist the urge to react to the nickname. He knew he was one head shorter compared to her, but he was still growing. With a sigh, he said, "Well, okay," angry eyes. The girl bristled at his response. "What did you just fucking call me?" Naruto shrugged. "Since you won't tell me your name, I just called you by what I see." The girl folded her arms in exasperation and turned her head away. "Name's Tuya." Naruto suppressed a smirk. "All right, Tuya, nice to meet you. Did you come here to see the big waterfall, too?" "Don't get too fucking friendly, shrimp. I didn't stay because I wanted to chat." Kimimaro studied the girl's long, untamed hair and shabby clothing for a moment. "You didn't travel here for sightseeing." Tuyuya's eyes narrowed. "I've got better things to do." "What brought you here, then?" Naruto asked. Tuyuya stiffened. "None of your goddamn business," she said curtly, trying to deflect the question. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. "Just wondering what you were doing here alone. What the is it to you?" Tuyuya snapped. "Well," Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. "Kimimaro and I are heading to Iwagakure in the land of Earth to become ninjas. If you're also going that way, maybe we could travel together." Tuyuya let out a dry, Mocking laugh. The land of Earth, huh? I'm from there. And let me tell you something, if you think you can just waltz into Iowa and sign up for ninja school, you're an even big dumbass than you look. That place chews up weaklings and spits them out. A shrimp like you wouldn't last a day. Same goes for you, pale face. Kimimaro frowned at the nickname but stayed silent. Naruto blinked at her abrasive manner before puffing out his chest. We're not afraid. We're gonna be strong ninjas, and nothing's gonna stop us. Tuyuya's lips curled into a sneer. You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't keep you alive in Iowa. You'd be dead before you even figured out which way is north. Kimimaro managed to keep his composure despite her insults. When are you going back to the land of Earth? If you know your way around, maybe you could lead us there and give us some survival tips. Tuya shot him a withering look. Why the hell would I waste my time babysitting you two shitheads? I'm not going back to that hellhole ever again, she huffed, then bit her lip, as if realizing she'd said too much. If Iwagakure is as dangerous as you say, maybe we should change our plans, Kimimaro said, turning to Naruto. We could head for Sunagakure instead. It's closer than Kumogakure and would be a safer option. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, that's a good idea. We can still train and get strong there. Tuya scoffed. Suna, you're just choosing a slower death. You guys really are dumbasses. Kimimaro had had enough of her derisive remarks. Well, tell us a safe place to go. Where are you heading? Tuya scowled and fell silent. Despite her gruff facade, she looked just as lost as Kimimaro had been before meeting Naruto. You don't have a destination, do you? He guessed, his tone softening. Tuya glared at him, but she didn't refute his assumption. Hey, if you don't have anywhere to go, why not join us? Naruto leaned in with a warm smile. You're all by yourself, right? Nowhere's really safe, but it'd be safer if we stuck together. I don't need your concern, Tuya muttered, looking away. She hated how easily they had read her situation, but something about the blondie's words caused an odd flutter in her chest. Naruto's right. Even Yugakure, the village everyone calls peaceful, isn't as safe as we thought. Especially for girls traveling alone, Kimimaro added. Tuyuya's defiant expression faltered. The memory of a close call flashed through her mind. That lewd, hungry gaze still made her skin crawl. She touched the bruise on her wrist, a grim reminder of how vulnerable an 8-year-old girl like her really was. Maybe learning to fight at a ninja academy wasn't a bad idea. Fine, I'll go to Suna with you. But let's get one thing straight. I'm not tagging along because I need your protection. I can take care of myself. You two shitheads better not slow me down. Naruto grinned, taking her reluctant agreement as a win. You won't regret coming with us. And we're pretty tough, believe it. Whatever. I'm going to sleep. Tuya rolled her eyes and turned away, pulling up her blanket. With that, the three settled into their beds. They walked the entire day with little rest. The flowery meadows gradually gave way to vast fields of tall grass. Now and then, grasshoppers sprang from their path, launching into the air before vanishing into the sea of green. Small yellow butterflies fluttered about, twirling in playful spirals as they chased one another. Man, you should have seen me back at the resort hotel. That bastard was dragging the lady really hard, but nobody helped her, so I punched him, bam, right in the gut. And then before I could finish him off, Kimimaro pretended to be that tall, strong guy's son, and it scared the bastard away. Ha ha ha. Oh, yeah, sure. I bet he ran off crying, swearing never to mess with another shrimp again. Hey, it actually happened. And Kimimaro was quick on his feet. If he hadn't done that, I might have had to beat the guy up for real. Right, Kimimaro. Kimimaro, still focused on the map, barely glanced up. Tuya smirked. Pale face doesn't look like he agrees. Naruto scowled. You're just mad because you weren't there to see my greatness, he huffed. Besides, I run fast. I wouldn't get caught even if I did get into trouble. Yeah, as long as it's just a pissed off grandma with a cane chasing you. You think I'm slow? Naruto looked genuinely offended. Exercising is my hobby, you know. That and watering plants. Bet I could outrun either of you. Oh yeah? Tuya jutted her chin out. Her eyes glinted. Prove it. Naruto grinned and pointed at a lone tree ahead. First one to that tree wins. Sure. Ready. 1, 2, 3. He burst into a run. Tuya pretended to push off like she was about to sprint, then just casually kept walking, smirking to herself. Naruto skidded to a stop, eyes wide with betrayal. You were supposed to run. You were supposed to have a brain, but I guess life had other plans. Kimimaro sighed and looked up from his map. Come back, Naruto. Speed won't help much if you don't know where you're going. Naruto pouted but jogged back. Also, Kimimaro added, I wouldn't count exercising as a hobby if you're aiming to be a ninja. That's just part of training. But I enjoy training, Naruto muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. What's your hobby then, Kimimaro? Kimimaro thought for a moment. Oshibana. Oshi what? Pressed flower art. Huh, cool. Naruto just nodded, accepting it without further comment. How about you, Tuya? What's your hobby? Why the would I tell you? Kimimaro and I already told you what we like. Yeah, thanks for sharing your impressive interests in exercising and flower pressing. Flower pressing is a very fun hobby, Kimimaro said flatly. Tuya gave him a long side eye. He couldn't possibly mean it. As the sun slowly descended below the horizon, the afternoon sky deepened into a rich cornflower blue, streaked with soft hues of pale coral. Cirrus clouds stretched like wispy brushstrokes across the vast canvas, their feathery strands resembling the tails of comets. And anyway, Kimimaro's got crazy good survival skills. He knew exactly what we could eat and where to find clean water. Yeah, he can tell the difference between a rock and actual food. What a genius. Naruto crossed his arms. Like you wouldn't be worried about accidentally eating poisonous mushrooms. Like I'd ever be dumb enough to rely on that crap for food. Aha, so you admit you can't tell which ones are safe. Shut up, moron. Kimimaro sighed, rubbing his temple. Can you two be quiet for a moment? I'm trying to find the right path. A begrudging silence followed. Then Naruto snickered. Then another round of bickering erupted. Kimimaro pinched the bridge of his nose, already starting to regret his life choices. They walked for another hour. The sun had vanished completely, leaving behind a scarlet afterglow that slowly deepened into sienna. Overhead, the first stars emerged, flickering like lanterns against the lilac sky. A gentle breeze swept through the tall grass, setting it undulating like waves on a quiet lake. How much longer is this gonna take? Tuya grumbled. About 2 days to reach the land of wind, then another 3 to get to Suna, Kimimaro replied. What? Tuya stopped walking. You're telling me I'm putting up with this loudmouth for 5 more days? I'm fucking out, you hear me out. Hey, I'm not a loudmouth. Oh shut up, you. You can help me find the way instead, Kimimaro interrupted. If you'd kindly take your focus off Naruto and lend me a hand. Ha, who's paying him attention? Tuya scoffed, turning her head away. Think of all the countries we'll get to see. Naruto said brightly. We already passed through the land of waterfalls, and it was amazing. We even met you there. HMPH. Tuya kept her eyes on the distance, but a strange warmth stirred in her chest. Did he actually think meeting her was a good thing? The trail led them into a forest where massive brown mushrooms, each larger than a man, sprouted from trees with scaly bark, looming over the path like heavy parasols. Among them, slender bamboo stalks stood rigid, their emerald green leaves sharp as blades. Katydids chirped in a rhythmic chorus, blending with the crunch of fallen leaves beneath the children's footsteps. Let's call it a day, Kimimaro said, folding up his map. You know what? I'm traveling as fast as possible so I won't have to. Sounds great, I'm tired. Naruto cut Tuya off. You dare cut me off? She shot him a death glare. Naruto and Kimimaro exchanged a look. What? Quote. Naruto giggled as Kimimaro pointed out, you're grumpy. Tuyuya's nostrils flared, but she couldn't argue with that. Say that again and all. Forget it. She stomped off to a tree several meters away, squatting down with her back against the trunk, facing away from them. She heard the boys murmur something, followed by the plop of backpacks hitting the ground. A few minutes later came the sound of rustling wood. She tilted her head back, trying to ignore them, and gazed up at the starry night sky peeking through the dark canopy. She had been grumpy ever since that incident. And she hated it. But she couldn't help it. The boys' movements pulled her back to the present. She couldn't tune them out anymore. With a sigh, she glanced over at the pile of gathered materials. What the hell are you two doing? Building a fire to cook dinner. Come help. Naruto waved her over. Tuyuya's eyes narrowed. Do you morons even know what you're doing? Where are the holes? Holes? She rolled her eyes. If I don't teach you idiots how to build a fire, you're gonna get us killed with all that light and smoke. Groaning, she pushed herself to her feet and stomped back. Do as I say, she ordered. Naruto and Kimaro shrugged and dropped the firewood. First, dig a hole. She tapped the ground with her foot. We're building the fire here. The boys crouched down and got to work. Naruto clawed at the dirt like a mole, flinging clumps aside in hasty scoops, while Kimaro dug steadily, paring off layers of dry soil as if performing surgery. When they finished, Tuya nodded. Now a smaller hole next to it. For airflow. They obeyed. Once both holes were dug, she added, now connect them with a tunnel. A tunnel? Naruto frowned. Won't the dirt on top just collapse? Just do it, Tuya snapped, crossing her arms. The soil's dry enough. Quit whining. Naruto muttered something under his breath but grabbed a twig. Kimimaro worked carefully from the smaller hole, carving a path toward the larger one, while Naruto, still skeptical, poked hesitantly from the opposite side. A moment later, their twigs broke through to each other, forming a narrow passage. Tuya peered in, satisfied. Not bad. Now go do whatever you were gonna do. The two boys arranged kindling and tinder in the first hole, struck a match, and soon, a smokeless fire burned brightly within the pit. Tuya set up her pan to boil water while the boys sliced potatoes and tossed them in. This fire is so hot the potatoes already look ready to eat, Naruto marveled, licking his lips. Not only that, but because it doesn't produce smoke and the flames are confined below ground level, it's hard to spot from a distance, Kimimaro added. So we can remain undetected by enemies. You're a genius, Tuya. Tuya snorted. It's a miracle you idiots survived this long. She only ever called someone a genius, sarcastically, mocking rather than praising them. But Paleface, the one she had called a genius, had just called her one. And meant it. Tuya shook her pan over the fire, trying not to think too hard about it. The potatoes turned out to be not enough for 3 people. Naruto reached into his backpack and pulled out a cup of instant ramen. This is the last one I've got, but I think you should try it. It's really delicious, he said, handing the cup of instant ramen to Tuya, who raised an eyebrow at him. We're sorry for making fun of you earlier, he added with an apologetic smile. Tuya shook her head dismissively and tore off the aluminum foil lid. Your favorite food. No wonder you're a shrimp. She ripped open the seasoning packets and dumped them in, then grabbed her pan and poured in some of the boiled water. As she waited for the noodles to soften, she caught Naruto watching her eagerly, practically bouncing on the balls of his feet. What are you staring at? Nothing, Naruto said quickly, but a grin was already spreading across his face. Tuya grunted and took a bite. It's good, right? Naruto asked, his eyes lighting up at the subtle shift in her expression. I've had worse. It was actually okay. Better than okay. The noodles were perfectly soft, soaking up the umami-rich broth. The savory taste of dried shrimps mingled with hints of garlic and soy. It was salty, a little greasy, and weirdly comforting, way better than she'd expected. After finishing their meal, they covered up the holes to put out the fire, concealing any evidence of their presence. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of damp earth, fresh foliage, and a whiff of a nearby river. We should all share this, Naruto declared, holding up an old bed sheet. Tuya wrinkled her nose. You kiddin' me? That thing looks like it's been used as a doormat. It's clean enough, Kimaro said simply. I asked the inn not to throw it away. Tuya was about to fire back, but a sudden gust of wind made her shiver, and she sneezed. Scowling, she snatched a corner of the sheet. Fine, but if either of you kicks me in your sleep, I'll knock your teeth out. Naruto blanched at the threat. Wait, Kimimaro, you sleep in the middle. He let go of the bed sheet and hid behind Kimimaro, pushing him toward Tuya. Kimimaro glanced back, raising an eyebrow. How do you know I'm more pain tolerant? He asked in a tone that sounded half joking and half serious. Tuya rolled her eyes and flopped down onto the ground, wrapping herself in the bed sheet. If you two idiots keep this nonsense up, I'm just gonna claim the damn bed sheet myself. Naruto and Kimimaro exchanged a quick glance before lying down beside her, Kimimaro in the middle. The three children huddled together under the makeshift blanket, warmth seeping between them as they drifted into sleep. Early the next morning, Tuya stretched and sat up, feeling refreshed, but something felt off. Shish. The farther they ventured into the land of rain, the sparser the grass on the meadows became. The sun shone feebly through thick layers of gray clouds. Gusts of wind blew in their faces and almost pushed them back, as if warning them not to go any further. Kimimaro looked up from his fluttering map and said, if we go straight to Omegakure, we can fill our supplies and get to Suna quicker. Naruto was about to agree with Kimimaro's idea when Kurama's voice boomed in his head, Brat, do not go to aim. Why? Naruto asked Kurama in his mind. They have been in a perpetual civil war for years now. Even being in this country alone is risky. Then how do we get to Suna, Mr. Fox? Pass through the land of rain as fast as possible, then take a slight detour by going along the borders within the land of rivers, Kurama suggested. Then let's take the shortest route, said Tuya. No, let's head to the land of rivers, Naruto said abruptly. The other two looked at him confused. I got a feeling that aim is too dangerous, he explained hastily. A feeling? Tuya was completely baffled. What the does that? Alright, I trust your judgment, Naruto. Kimimaro said. You're trusting that shrimp's instincts. Tuya couldn't believe that the seemingly level-headed pale-face shit would be swayed that easily. Well, it was Naruto's idea to go to the land of wind to begin with. Might as well just listen to him, Kimimaro shrugged. Maybe he was just tired from being the only one figuring out the directions, but something about Naruto's confidence in where they should go was convincing. Oh god damn it, the stupidity virus is spreading. Tuya looked at Kimimaro disgustedly. They walked for another 2 hours, until raindrops started falling down, then in a matter of seconds it began to pour. Before they even realized it, Naruto, Kimimaro and Tuya had grasped each other's arms firmly and clenched their teeth against the violent squalls. What in the fucking hell is this strong wind? Tuya muttered under her breath as they held onto each other in the rainstorm. I fucking swear, she slipped on a small pile of mud before she could finish her sentence, pulling Naruto, who was in between her and Kimimaro, along with her. Kimimaro stopped Naruto from falling face first into the ground, but Tuya wasn't that lucky. Shit. I fucking hate this place. She cursed and got up from the mud puddle, face and clothes all filthy. Who thought it was a good idea to come here? She yelled. Hold on tight to me, Tuya. Naruto shouted and grabbed her arm again, pulling her closer to him. We don't want to lose you. Tuya was a little flustered, but she laughed, ha. I'm not dying from a fucking rainstorm, shrimp. We should hide somewhere and wait for it to stop, or we'll be blown apart. Kimimaro shouted. They looked desperately around the landscape, searching for shelter, but all they could see were stray trees bending and almost snapping in the rainstorm. They had no choice but to forge ahead, but the gales and miry trail made every step forward difficult. Tuya started complaining again, but Naruto exclaimed in relief, look, a cave. He gestured with his chin at a hollow boulder in the blurry distance. They hurried to the cave and dived for cover. This is fucking awful, Tuya said, brushing her messy hair with her fingers, her face still bearing traces of mud. Shivering in their drenched clothes and sludge-filled sandals, the three orphans huddled together in the cramped cave. Kimaro and Tuya felt an instant warmth from Naruto. His tiny body felt almost like a heater in the cold, dank air. They couldn't help but snuggle up to him. Sitting in the middle, Naruto blushed and wondered if this is what it's like to have a family. Tuya realized she was almost squeezing him, and cleared her throat and asked, "So, shrimp? Where the hell are you from?" "Konoha," said Naruto. "Ha, how about you, pale face?" "I'm from the land of water," Kimaro said, still trembling with cold. Tuya gave him a nod. She knew from his answer that he wasn't from its ninja village Kurigakure, and from his reluctant look that he isn't someone who would share his past. Well, not that she'd care. They stayed in silence as they endured the howl of winds and the splashes of rain. They were shivering, cold, wet and muddy. They huddled together for warmth. Naruto wondered if this is what it was like to have a family. Early in the next morning, Kimaro opened his eyes to a shaft of sunlight through the cave, then woke the other two up. "The rainstorm has stopped," he said, gently shaking Naruto's shoulder. "Yesterday was a bad day, but I have a feeling we used up our bad luck," said Naruto, stretching his arms outside the cave. "Oh, but it felt nice sleeping with my friends leaning against me," he added with a big grin. "Friends?" Tuya stopped mid-yawn and turned her head back at Naruto. "Who the air friends with you?" "Why, you and Kimaro, of course." "Whatever. Let's get out of this cursed place," Tuya said. The trio head out. They are wet, muddy and their clothes are torn, but they had each other, and Tuya didn't realize that her lips were curving upwards. Woodland appeared again as they continued down the trail they had left in search of shelter. Their map had turned into shreds in the rainstorm. Naruto led the way with Kurama telling him the right directions from time to time. Kimaro wondered why Naruto would pause for a moment, then confidently choose one of the forked paths when there were no road signs. It felt as if he was listening for an answer. Tuya stayed silent for most of the day, looking like she had a ton of questions but gave up on asking them. Finally, when the sun started to cast warm hues across the sky, they got out of the woods and saw a river. Canals could be seen branching out from it. Several households and shops spread along the waterways. "We're in the land of rivers," said Kurama. "Unless you brats can swim for hours, you'll need to rent a boat." They walked along the river. Boats that carried 8 to 10 people passed by them. "It seems that in order to navigate through the land of rivers, we need to travel by boat," Kimaro noted. They saw 4 people standing by a dock, but no boats were tied to the pier. Naruto went straight to them, and the other 2 followed. "Are you waiting for a boat to come, ma'am?" Naruto asked a woman. "Yes," she nodded. "How much does a ride cost?" 3,000 ryo for 2 hours. "How much money do we have?" asked Kimaro. "I only have 70 ryo. "I have 100 ryo, said Naruto. 20. "I'm broke as shit," Tuya said, holding her hands up. "Ha, if you try to get on the boat with that little money, the driver will throw you kids straight into the river," a man said sneeringly. They left the dock in dismay. Tuya said, "We don't have money for food, let alone a boat." "Yeah, we ate the last bit of the food in our bags," said Naruto. "Do we have anything that can make money for us?" Kimaro asked. The 3 fell silent. They looked around the little shops and market stalls. Some sold groceries, others sold shoes and clothes, and still others sold boating accessories like ropes and clamps. Tuya stopped by a shop selling sundry goods for passengers on the boats. She entered the shop and picked up a flute from a pile of towels, serving trays and waterproof card decks. It had been a while since she last played the flute. Bittersweet memories began to surface. "Tuya?" Kimaro asked. "Well, I can play the flute," Tuya shrugged. "And hope people will pay for it." "Wow, you can play the flute." Naruto was amazed that a grumpy girl like Tuya would know how to play an instrument, not to mention being confident in her skills. Unlike you, uncultured shrimp, Tuya jeered. She went to the counter and showed the shop owner the flute. I will pay 100 ryo and you will let me buy this flute, she said undiplomatically. The shop owner snatched the flute away from her. Why would I? Did you not see the price tag? If you don't have 350 ryo, get out of my shop. We can't afford that much, but we really need it to make money. We will pay you back when we've earned 250 ryo, Naruto explained. Please, sir. The owner looked at the three kids in ragged clothes. They must be migrants from the land of rain, and he had seen plenty of them over the years, some of whom even tried to steal stuff from his shop. He didn't feel the need to pity them. That's your problem, and I have no reason to believe in you brats. Now shoo, he said. The three children left the shop sulkily, with Tuya closing the door with a slam, followed by a muffled shout from the shop owner. Damn, that old has no pity, Tuya said, walking and kicking a pebble out of her way. Naruto sighed. I guess we have to think of other ways to make money. Kimaro thought for a moment. Maybe now is the time to use his ability. If he doesn't, they would all starve. I have a plan, but I have to do this alone. Wait here until I come back, he told the other two and started running back towards the shop, leaving them in confusion. What's Paleface gonna do? Tuya muttered, hands on hips. I don't know, but we have to trust Kimimaro, he's good with people, said Naruto. Kimimaro closed the door behind him. Hey, I said you won't convince me, the shop owner frowned and said. Kimimaro turned off the lights and summoned a bone sword from his shoulder. He jumped onto the counter and grabbed the owner by the collar. You are to give us all the money you have in here, and that flute behind you, he ordered, sword tip touching the side of the man's head. The man gulped and slowly put all the money and the flute into a gunny sack. And if you try to chase us or call for help, this sword is going straight through your skull the next time you see it, Kimimaro warned and slung the gunny sack onto his back. Do you hear me? Yes, said the man in a small voice. Kimimaro jumped back and fled the shop. He ran back to Naruto and Tuya and put on a smile. The shop owner gave us money and the flute, he said, showing them the sack. How did you get him to do this? Tuya asked in surprise. I told him my story and he pitied me, Kimimaro said, hand on his neck. Wow, this is great. Naruto shouted when he saw how much money there was inside. We have money to buy food and clothes and boat tickets. Tuya examined the flute in her hand, then looked up at Kimimaro suspiciously. His story. Pale face sure likes some privacy, huh? She thought. Kimimaro felt her suspicious stare and said, all right, let's go shopping. The three set out to fill themselves. There were no stalls that sold cooked food, so they bought all kinds of fruits, small mandarins, loquats, and dried persimmons, fruits that aren't too heavy to carry around and can be preserved longer. After they had feasted on some mandarins, they went to buy clothes in a shop. Kimimaro picked up a light lavender, loose-fitting, long-sleeved shirt and black pants in 30 seconds. Tuya flipped through the racks and took out a black shirt, a tan tunic with elbow-length sleeves, and black skin-tight shorts. Naruto insisted on choosing either an orange and blue jacket or an orange and black one despite getting yelled at by Tuya that wearing a color that bright would get them all killed. He chose the latter under Kimimaro's suggestion that black is more unobtrusive than blue. Tuya. At least unzip it. Naruto. Okay, sheesh. Dressed in new clothes, the three children returned to the dock in contentment. A punt arrived 10 minutes later. The boatman asked everyone waiting in line where they wished to go, to which Kimimaro replied the final station after looking at a map the boatman gave him. The people bought tickets and hopped onto the boat, with the three children paying 11,250 ryo for 2.5 hours, about a third of the money they had after shopping. Welcome aboard, folks. My name's Daisuke. Please don't stand up abruptly while we're traveling, and make sure to keep your belongings safe, he told the 8 passengers. Feel free to ask any questions. Now, off we go. The boatman pushed the punt away from the bank with a bamboo stick and started the ride. The sun had gone down, leaving saffron streaks in the dark blue sky. 3 young men and a girl in her late teens sat on the bench on the left side of the boat, while the children and one middle-aged man sat on the right side. Naruto noticed Tuya shifting uneasily, looking leery of the portly man next to her, who spread out a newspaper, elbow nudging Tuyuya's shoulder. Daisuke-san. Naruto raised his hand and called the boatman. May I exchange positions with her? He asked, pointing to Tuya. Sure, the boatman replied. Careful, kid, he added as Naruto quickly stood up and gestured for Tuya to move to Kimamaro's side. Naruto sat down next to the man and flashed Tuya a smile, who looked away pretending that she wasn't flustered by Naruto's chivalrous act, then saw the teenage girl smiling at her in amusement. The man, now next to Naruto, realized that he had made Tuya uncomfortable and felt a little awkward. Hey kids, I heard that you're getting off at the final station. It's almost at the border between this country and the land of wind, he said, trying to strike up a friendly conversation. Yes, we are going to the land of wind, Naruto said, then noticed Kimamaro's worried stare. What are you kids going to do there? Asked a man sitting across from Naruto. I've traveled to the land of wind once and got lost in the desert. I was lucky my friend Kentaro found me 2 days later, he said, pointing with his thumb at the guy next to him. We're visiting our family, answered Kimamaro. We know the way to their place. The man called Kentaro raised an eyebrow. You must be very independent kids for your parents to trust you to go alone, he guessed. Hey, we can earn money ourselves after all, Naruto blurted. Tuya can play the flute really well. Tuya glared at Naruto for suddenly calling on her. Oh, really? That's cool. Would you mind playing a tune or two for us, Tuya-chan? Kentaro asked. The sudden gazes from strangers that fell upon Tuya made her a little anxious. Oh great, the idiot is hyping me up before he ever heard me play, she thought. Now's your chance, Kimamaro whispered beside her ear. Tuya sighed. Sure, she said and took out the flute before glaring at Naruto one more time, who was grinning at her with anticipation. You're dead meat, she thought. Holding the flute in place, Tuya hesitated for a moment. She didn't want to play folk songs from the land of Earth on the flute in case anyone on the boat recognizes where she came from. That leaves only one choice. Tuya took a deep breath and began blowing notes. Mellow music wafted through the air, and all at once the breezes and the swash of water against the punt seemed to become gentler. Everyone, including Daisuke the boatman, was mesmerized by the soothing melody that conveyed a sense of safety and reassurance. Tuya tried to keep herself composed, but memories of warm embraces and soft kisses on the forehead were tugging at her heartstrings. Her fingers felt stiff and her breath got shaky a few times. She sneaked glances at her audience. Luckily no one seemed to notice her flaws. Her eyes met Naruto's, who looked like he was in a daze. His dreamy expression almost made Tuya smirk, but thanks to him, Tuya shifted her focus solely on her performance. She played the rest of the piece with ease, and was met with a round of applause when she finished. Bravo! Cheered Kentaro. That was amazing. We should pay Tuya-chan for that. Right, Yohei. He smiled at his friend. Yeah, you are very talented, little girl, said Yohei. I don't know the first thing about music, but you certainly moved me. He praised Tuya as he and Kentaro each placed 60 ryo into a pouch that Kimamaro had taken out quietly. See, I told you she's the best. Naruto gloated as he collected money from everyone else. Tuya blushed and put away her flute. The music was beautiful, it sounded like a loving mother's lullaby, said a man sitting across from Kimamaro. Does it have a name? Tuya froze upon his words. Did the emotions that she unintentionally put in give it away? No, I made it myself, she made up a lie. Naruto's eyes sparkled. I didn't know you're a prodigy in music, Tuya. He said. Tuya couldn't stand Naruto's exaggerated compliments. Enough of your talking, shrimp. She said, grabbing Naruto's jacket and pulling him back. Shut up or I'll smack your head with my flute. Ah, come on Tuya, why are you being shy? Naruto whined. Tuya held up her flute again as if about to smack him. Naruto hunched his back and winced. The girl across from Tuya, who had been paying attention to their little interactions, chuckled. The river glimmered under the moon as the punt cut through its inky waters. Thanks to Naruto's high spirits, the group of passengers spent their night chatting away with each other. One by one people reached their stops and bid farewell to the three children. At the second last stop, the girl across from them got up and approached Tuya while Naruto was talking to Daisuke, who was adjusting the boat lights. The blonde is a keeper, she whispered to her and winked before getting off the boat. Tuya felt her face turn red. It hadn't occurred to her that people would see them this way. Me and that shrimp. Never, she thought. As they neared the dock, Daisuke eased off, letting the punt glide forward. He dug his bamboo pole into the riverbed, leaning into it to slow their approach. The boat drifted a few more meters than intended, overshooting the dock. Clicking his tongue, Daisuke angled the pole and pushed against the riverbed, nudging the punt backward with slow, deliberate strokes. Once properly aligned, he planted the pole firmly again, steadying the vessel as water gently lapped its sides. All right, kids, here we are. End of the line, Daisuke announced, stretching his back with a hand on his hip. You're on your own from here. Naruto hopped off first, stretching his arms over his head. Thanks for the ride, Daisuke-san. He said with a grin. Daisuke chuckled, resting his pole against his shoulder. No problem, kid. You made it fun. Then, turning to Tuya, he added, and you've got real talent with that flute. Keep at it. Tuya slowed as she stepped toward the dock, casting a brief glance at the boatman. Thanks, she mumbled before looking away. Naruto offered a hand to help her up. She met his gaze for a second, then scoffed and leapt onto the dock on her own. Naruto blinked at the rejection but didn't dwell on it. Turning to Kimaro instead, he extended a hand. Kimaro took it without hesitation, letting Naruto pull him onto the wooden planks. Daisuke gave a two-fingered wave. Take care, kids. Naruto returned the gesture, and Kimaro gave a small nod before the three children left the riverbank. They made their way through the dimly lit streets, passing shuttered shops and empty stalls. The town was quiet, save for the occasional murmur of conversation or the distant meow of a stray cat. We should find somewhere to sleep, Kimaro said. Yeah, before Naruto starts snoring in the street, Tuya added. Hey, Naruto protested, but before he could argue further, a vivid green neon sign caught their attention, glowing above a modest two-story building, Meander Inn. Without another word, they headed toward it, grateful for the promise of rest. Lying in bed, Tuya gazed at Naruto and Kimamaro's sleeping faces on the other mattress. She thought back to the last time they'd had a proper place to sleep, on the night she met them. Back then, she'd gone to bed feeling uneasy in their presence. Now, much as she hated to admit it, being around them made her feel safe. The realization irritated her. Worse, the words from that teenage girl on the boat echoed in her mind. The blonde's a keeper. Scowling, Tuya turned away from the boys and shut her eyes. The next morning, the three children set out on the final leg of their journey. After 2 hours of walking, they reached the land of wind. A desert stretched before them, vast and blistering under the cloudless azure sky. How the hell did I agree to this? Tuya muttered, shoulders slumping. We'll need to ration our water, Kimamaro said, frowning. Come on, guys. We can do this. Naruto tried to lift their spirits, but Tuya and Kimamaro only stared at the boundless sand ahead. They trudged for an hour along the dusty road, enduring the sting of the sun against their skin. Sweat gathered at their temples, rolling down their cheeks in itchy streaks before they wiped it away. Their lips cracked from the dryness, and their hair clung to their scalps, damp with sweat. The air was hot and unmoving, offering no reprieve. No wind in the land of wind. How ironic. How the hell are we supposed to make it to Suna? I'm already melting, Tuya grumbled, wiping her forehead with her sleeve. Naruto, sip your water, don't gulp it, Kimaro warned. Sorry. Naruto quickly capped his bottle, suppressing a sigh. 2 more hours passed. Their pace had slowed, and their legs were growing heavy. Naruto wiped his chest with his shirt and shook the collar to fan himself. He felt his stomach rumble. We should eat something. I'm hungry. You think I'm not? Tuya huffed, adjusting the strap of her bag. Only idiots waste time stopping in this heat. Kimimaro reached into his knapsack and pulled out a loquat. Then we eat as we walk. Good idea, Naruto said, grabbing one from his backpack. He tore away the paper-thin, slightly fuzzy skin with his fingernails and popped it into his mouth. The golden flesh yielded easily under his teeth, tender and bursting with juice. Sweetness flooded his tongue, and a pleased hum escaped him as he chewed. Tuya let out a sigh of exasperation and did the same as the boys. Fine, I'm tired of carrying them anyway. Naruto spat out the smooth, dark brown seed onto the ground and grabbed another loquat. The egg-shaped fruit nearly slipped from his fingers as he peeled it desperately. They continued on, eating loquats for lunch as they walked, hoping to shorten their time under the scorching sun. The loquats only offered fleeting comfort. The brief burst of moisture wasn't enough to quench their thirst, and the sugar only sharpened it. Their sweat evaporated quickly in the dry air, leaving behind a crust of salt on their backs. By the time another 4 hours had gone by, their feet throbbed, their heads felt leaden, and their water bottles were nearly empty. What if we run out of water before we get through this desert? Naruto asked, his brows knitting together. Let's look for trees. If we find any, there might be an oasis nearby, Kimimaro said. Until then, don't drink the rest of your water. They squinted against the blinding sunlight, scanning the endless dunes for any sign of vegetation. But the land remained barren, nothing but scattered rocks and the occasional flicker of movement from a lizard or rodent. Naruto was starting to consider drinking the last bit of water in his bottle when Kurama's voice boomed in his mind. Brat, I sense chakra, 11 people. They're stationary, which means they might be near water. Head southwest. Naruto perked up. Thanks. You're the best. Kurama growled. Don't get the wrong idea, brat. If you die of dehydration, I'm going down with you. I'd rather not end up like that. Naruto slowed his steps. Wait. What do you mean? Go down with me. Exactly what it sounds like. Naruto frowned. So if I drop dead, you die? Yes, Kurama cut in, tone flat. Naruto was silent for a moment before he huffed. Well, that's not happening. Ha, I'm not gonna let you die, Naruto said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We'll both make it out of this, so don't worry about it, K. Kurama's scowl faltered. That wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Most Jinchuriki, upon learning that their tailed beast would die with them, either felt relieved that the so-called monster wouldn't be set free or saw it as further proof that the being inside them was nothing more than a parasite. Some, broken by their pathetic lives, had even considered ending it themselves, grinning at the thought that, for once, they held the power to hurt the tailed beast they blamed for their suffering. But this human, this overly confident brat, had the audacity to promise he wouldn't let him die. As if he had any say in the matter. Kurama scoffed, resting his head on his limbs. He hadn't mentioned that his death wouldn't be permanent, that he'd reincarnate after some time. But dying was still dying, and he had no intention of experiencing it again. TCH. Don't get ahead of yourself, brat. You're still half dead in the middle of a desert. Focus on walking. Naruto grinned. Got it. Tuya groaned. I'd kill for some water right now. Don't worry, I'll find it. Naruto declared, veering off the road. I don't see a tree in that direction, Kimimaro said, confused. Tuya rolled her eyes. I'm 99% sure I'm gonna die in this desert with an idiot leading the way. Kimimaro and Tuya followed Naruto for nearly half an hour before palm trees appeared in the distance. They gaped at the sight ahead, then at Naruto, then at each other. Naruto kept his gaze fixed forward and stayed silent, pretending not to notice their reactions. He hoped they wouldn't ask how he had known to come this way. He didn't want to lie to his friends, but he wasn't ready to tell them the truth either. The 11 people are moving on, Kurama noted. They're heading away from you. Hearing this, Naruto quickened his steps, moving ahead of his friends. Finally, they arrived at an oasis, a small pond tucked between patches of scrub and tall, arching date palms. Red dragonflies hovered over the clear, turquoise water. Footprints dotted the surroundings. Thank whatever gods there are for whatever you did, shrimp. Tuya exclaimed. Kimaro stared at Naruto in awe again. How did you know there's an oasis before you saw the trees? But Naruto only cheered and dashed down the sand dune, as if he hadn't heard the question at all. Kimaro and Tuya exchanged puzzled looks before shrugging it off and rushing down after him. They knelt at the edge of the pond and scooped up water with their bare hands. The first sip was a balm to their chapped lips, cool and soothing as it washed away the rawness. They drained the last drops from their bottles, refilled them with fresh water, and gulped it down in one go. They repeated the motion several times until they were satisfied, finally chasing away the dryness that had lingered in their throats for hours. After replenishing their bottles one last time, they splashed water onto their faces and limbs, ridding themselves of the saltiness and acidity of sweat. Naruto dunked his head into the pond, resurfacing with a gasp before shaking off water in all directions. Ah! Stop shaking like a wet dog, Tuya barked, stumbling back before flicking a handful of water at him. At least I'm clean now, Naruto retorted smugly, running his fingers through his soaked hair. You call that shit clean? Tuya shot back. Look at these footprints, Kimaro said quietly, pointing at the sand. People were here not long ago. They must have drunk from and bathed in this water. Tuya immediately retracted her hands, her face contorted in disgust. You're telling us this now? Gross. Naruto yelped, scrambling to his feet. The children then gathered clusters of fallen dates beneath the palms, their russet skins slightly wrinkled from basking in the sun. They blew grains of sand off them before biting into the soft, sticky flesh. So sweet, Naruto mumbled, his cheeks bulging with fruit. Much sweeter than the loquats. Tuya furrowed her brow as she chewed. We're gonna get thirstier than ever. It's fine, we have a whole pond of water. Kimaro paused at the glaring from the other two. If we really need it, he finished. Naruto swallowed and stuck out his tongue. I wasn't thinking about the pond water until you mentioned it. Now it feels like other people's feet were in my mouth. You should have just kept your mouth shut about it, Tuya grumbled. Sorry. With their stomachs finally full, they collected the rest of the dates into their bags. The sun had begun its descent, casting the desert in a hazy, golden glow. As it sank lower, the day's heat vanished, replaced by an encroaching chill. What thr is up with him? Tuya whispered to Kimaro as they sat under a palm tree, watching Naruto attempt to catch a dragonfly. He had no clue where to find water, and then suddenly, he's a damn compass. It happened in the land of rain too, Kimaro whispered back, his eyes on the boy whose energy seemed as boundless as the desert itself. He's just special, I guess. Naruto, we should probably stay here for the night. What do you think? He called out. Okay. Naruto chirped, dropping his hands from where he had been swiping at a darting red dragonfly. Once darkness fell, the fiery sky and the ochre desert melded into a pitch-black void, and the temperature plummeted. Shivering, the children huddled together among the shrubs, their thin clothes doing little to keep them warm against the desert night's merciless cold. We were burning alive earlier, and now we're freezing to death, Tuya muttered, rubbing her arms. Kimaro exhaled into his cupped hands, too cold to give a response. The moon emerged, providing just enough light for them to see each other's faces, and a looming shadow in the vicinity. Brat, look out! Kurama alerted Naruto to a giant creature of an orange-yellow color. As it crawled closer, They could make out a pair of yellow pincers, then an orange tail curved over the back, a red stinger glinting at the telson. A scorpion. A giant scorpion. They shot up to their feet and got into a defensive stance, staring in horror at the monster. Oh, come on. As if the crazy weather isn't enough to deal with. Tuya huffed. Should we run? Naruto asked. The scorpion, larger than a cow, was approaching them on its 8 long legs at a terrifying pace, its table-sized pincers clicking hungrily. You two run. Kimimaro ordered. What about you? Naruto glanced at him. Kimimaro took a step forward. It seemed unlikely that they could all outrun the giant scorpion. He had to fight it to give his friends a chance to escape. I'm sorry if you hate me for this, but I hope we survive. What do you? Before Naruto could finish his question, Kimimaro charged forward. 10-finger drilling bullets. Bone projectiles shot from Kimimaro's fingertips, striking the scorpion's 2 median eyes. The creature stopped in its tracks, rearing its fused head and thorax. Kimimaro darted in circles around it, firing at its 5 pairs of lateral eyes. Naruto and Tuya stared, wide-eyed, as he formed a bone sword from his shoulder. Dance of the Camellia. Kimimaro lunged, stabbing the scorpion's abdomen, paralyzing it for a second. Unfortunately, even without eyesight, scorpions could sense movement from vibrations. The giant scorpion whipped around, trying to grab Kimimaro with its pincers, the sword still lodged in its exoskeleton. Narrowly dodging the pincer, Kimimaro retreated and summoned another bone sword, but the arachnid slapped it away before he could do anything with it. We should help him, Naruto shouted. How? Tuya shouted back. Kimimaro rolled away from the scorpion's attempt at snapping him. He summoned a third sword and managed to parry several attacks before it was slapped away again. Just when he was about to get caught, Naruto jumped onto the scorpion's back and, aiming for one of the holes Kimimaro had made in its eyes, drove a bone sword into its head. The creature froze, stunned by the strike, then swatted Naruto away with its tail, sending him hurtling through the air and crashing head first into the sand. Naruto! Tuya screamed, but Naruto remained motionless on the ground. Letting out a cry of despair, she lashed out at the scorpion in a blind rage, smacking its segmented legs violently with another sword left on the ground. Yuga! Kimimaro fired a volley of drilling bullets, then unleashed a flurry of slashes at the scorpion's pincers with a new sword, but the giant creature tanked every hit with its tough exoskeleton. Already exhausted from their trek through the desert, the 2 children soon felt their strength slipping away. Tuya barely held her own, dodging and blocking the scorpion's ferocious pincers, while Kimimaro's attacks grew sluggish. It was nice knowing you, pale face. Tuya gritted her teeth. Guess we're joining Shrimp soon. No, he's not dead. He can't be. Kimimaro refused to believe they had lost their friend, but he wasn't sure. All he knew was that they were on their last legs. They fought with every bit of strength they had left, but to no avail. Just as Kimimaro felt his body giving out, a loud roar ripped through the night. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of Naruto on all fours, shrouded in a mass of bubbling orange chakra. Snarling, Naruto sprouted a chakra tail and lunged at the scorpion. With a swipe of his tail, Naruto struck the giant scorpion with such force that it went flying across the oasis. The creature crashed into a palm tree and flipped over, exposing the thinner parts of its armor. Naruto went in for the attack, his chakra tail smashing the scorpion over and over, hammering it into the ground. Each strike put cracks in its exoskeleton, the fractures splintering further with every impact. Kimimaro and Tuya watched, breathless, as Naruto kept pummeling the giant scorpion, the relentless blows shattering its armor and crushing its insides, until it stopped moving altogether. At last, the monster lay still, lifeless. Kimimaro and Tuya hurried to Naruto's side. He was on his elbows and knees, panting heavily, the seething chakra cloak around him already faded. Nah, Naruto, are you okay? Kimimaro asked, wrapping an arm around his back. Naruto gave a shaky nod. You saved us, Shrimp. I thought you were. Tuyuya's voice trailed off. I thought, Naruto breathed. I thought you'd finally call me by my name. Huh, Tuyuya blinked. Resting his head on the ground, Naruto managed a weak smile. Naruto woke up to a dark cavern. Before he could process what was going on, an orange giant fox appeared in front of him. Brat, you're beaten unconscious by the scorpion, the nine-tailed fox told him. Naruto's mind became clear immediately. Right, I was on the giant scorpion's back. What do I do? I'll give you my chakra. You're too weak to do anything on your own, Kurama replied. Oh, thank you so much, I have to go save my friends, said Naruto. Go save yourself first, Kurama scoffed and started charging up Naruto with chakra. Naruto felt an instant surge of energy in his body, as if someone was pumping a warm liquid into his blood vessels, but the energy quickly became too hot and his body felt heavy, as if his blood vessels were bulging from the excessive liquid. Naruto dropped to his knees, looking very uncomfortable. I guess I'll just give you one tail of chakra. That should be enough, brat, Kurama said. The next thing Naruto knew was that he was on all fours in the desert, but the midnight air was no longer ice cold. Instead, he felt heated up, and furious. He couldn't think straight, but he knew the golden yellow creature in the near distance had to be destroyed. The thought of utter destruction materialized into a weapon growing from his lower back that he somehow could control with his mind. Naruto roared and snarled as he gave the giant scorpion a severe beating with his orange translucent tail. Every twitch of the scorpion's leg or pincer provoked him further. It was not until he realized that the scorpion had totally stopped reacting to his hits that his anger subsided and his body cooled down. Now sitting against a tree and having fed some water, Naruto stared blankly at his two friends, who were watching him closely. It felt very weird that his emotions were influenced by S chakra so suddenly that he almost lost his reason, and it scared himself. Then he realized that his friends must have been terrified. They were trying to hide it, but the discomfort in their eyes, especially in Tuyuya's, was obvious. So, you probably wanna know how I did that, Naruto said nervously. You don't have to tell us if you don't want to, said Kimaro. I surprised you too, he said, looking away. I wouldn't have had the courage to fight it if it weren't for you. Thank you for protecting us, Kimaro, Naruto said. Kimaro turned his gaze back at Naruto. I should have been honest with you two back in the land of rivers, he confessed penitently. The shop owner gave me money because I threatened him. Using that. Quote. He pointed to a bone sword lying near and sighed. I'm from the Kagaya clan. I have a Kekkei Genkei, or bloodline limit, that allows me to control my bones and use them to fight. I can harden my bones and regrow them quickly. It's a rare ability in my clan. He hesitated before going on. My clan locked me up in a cell, and when they attacked Kurigakure, they used me as a weapon. We fought hard, but lost. I killed many ninjas before I realized that I was the only one still alive in our clan. Kimimaro turned to look at a wide-eyed Tuya. I fled the land of water and wandered aimlessly. Until I met Naruto. Naruto remembered the day they met. Now he knew what led to Kimimaro's melancholic expression. They used me as a weapon. Those words resonated with Naruto. Just a few weeks ago he was told that he was not a person to his village, but merely a weapon. Naruto took a shaky breath. Have any of you heard of the nine-tailed fox? He asked. The two turned to him. Tuya shook her head. Years ago, the nine-tailed fox was controlled by a masked man and forced to attack Konohagakure. The giant fox almost destroyed the village. The fourth Hokage defeated the masked man, then sacrificed his own life to seal the nine-tailed fox inside a baby. The baby had no family. He grew into a lonely child. The people of Konoha feared and hated the child because they only saw the nine-tailed fox in him. They glared at him or avoided him wherever he went. Eventually, that child ran away. Naruto dropped his eyes sadly to his knees. That child is me. I understand if you guys are afraid of me now because I used the nine-tailed fox's power. His vision became blurry with tears as he continued. I'm sorry for scaring you. I just wanted to help and I couldn't imagine losing you guys. Just then, Tuya did something unexpected. She grabbed both Naruto and Kimimaro in a big hug. I don't give two shits about what either of your people think, all I know is I'd be dead without you two idiots, she said, arms firmly wrapped around them. Naruto and Kimimaro looked at each other in shock. Tuya, the grumpy, always cursing Tuya. Is she getting even with them by surprising them too? All the concern Naruto and Kimimaro had about being rejected by their newly made friend vanished. Well, hee hee, thanks, Tuya. Naruto blushed when Tuya finally pulled away. And Kimimaro, you're so cool with your ability. I'm happy that my friend is so strong. He smiled at Kimimaro. Thank you for saving our lives, Naruto. You should be proud of your power, Kimimaro smiled back. Tuya, you were very brave, too. I'm so lucky to have met you too. Naruto felt as if a boulder was lifted off his chest. He had revealed his secret to his friends, and they still accepted him. He smiled, possibly his first genuinely carefree smile. You guys are the best. He beamed at Kimimaro and Tuya. Oh please, quit being so dramatic, Tuya rolled her eyes with a smirk. The desert had brightened a little. Soon golden rays spread out from the horizon at the break of dawn. The cobalt sky took on pastel peach and baby blue tones. The three children watched the splendid sunrise in peaceful silence. All right, we should get going. Suna is near, believe it. Naruto stood up with a little help and stretched. They were weary from fighting and having not slept for a whole night, but they were more than ready to continue their journey to a new home. Together. Tap, tap, tap. The taps of a pen on a wooden desk and occasional rolling sounds of paper were interrupted by a knock on the office door. Come in, said a man in a tired voice. The door opened, and a man with a full beard stepped into the dim room and closed the door carefully. He wore the standard attire of a council senior, a taupe kimono under a tan haori and poncho. A white gutra obscured his hair. Keisuke-sama, I heard you called me. Yes. The man on the office chair put down his pen and lifted his half-closed dark eyes from a scroll. His auburn hair was messy, and his navy robe wrinkled under a gray poncho. I had you secure 3 batches of kunai from the forge. Is everything on schedule? Due to the recent sandstorm that delayed the delivery of iron, only 2 batches have been produced. I will ensure that the blacksmiths meet the deadline, Goza, the head of the weaponry department, replied. Go remind them that if they don't, under the terms of our contract, they will have to give us a discount, said Rasa. Understood. And tell Joseki to come here, I need his advice on the negotiations with the daimyo. Yes, sir. Goza answered, then hesitantly added, the head of the personnel department wanted me to relay one thing. What? Kids at the Central Park were injured by Gara-sama when he attempted to join them. Again. Yes. In particular, the newly promoted Jonin Toji's son almost got his ankle crushed, and was severely scraped. Rasa sighed and rested his forehead on top of his laced fingers, elbows on the desk. What was Yoshimaru doing? He muttered. Then he snatched a blank piece of paper and scribbled something on it. Give Toji this. He can get his son treated in the hospital for free. You may leave now. Goza took the note from Rasa and bowed before exiting the Keisuke's office. The 4th Keisuke of Sunagaku leaned back on his chair and turned around to face away from the stack of documents that were yet to be reviewed. Faint sunlight shone through the row of small round windows. He had been working overnight for 2 days, but the problems never seemed to become less. A request urging that funds be allocated to repair wrecked facilities at the training ground. A petition signed by academy teachers demanding a raise. A proposal put forward by Konoha to reduce the amount of pottery and porcelain commodities they had pre-ordered. Every issue was an indication of the financial crisis his village was in, and the daimyo of the Land of Wind wasn't exactly helping. And then there's his youngest son being a nuisance. Rasa pressed the strained muscles between his eyebrows. This is the 3rd time. I must do something before he starts killing people one day, he thought. Another boring shift. I hate this job so much, Kenji grumbled, yawning as he fanned his neck with a hand. And to think I could have been on that business trip to the land of rivers with Captain Kazuo instead of standing here doing absolutely nothing for 8 hours straight, Junpei muttered. The two Chunin stood at their post, sweltering in taupe uniforms and tan flak jackets reinforced at the shoulders. Though the deep shade of Sunagaku's entrance, a cleft in the thick stone walls, spared them from the sun's brutal glare, regulations still required them to keep their head wraps and neck covers on. Kenji stopped fanning himself. Still not over Genta getting picked. Junpei scoffed. Would you be? Everyone's drowning in work, but somehow he gets to go on a high-level mission while I'm stuck juggling trade reports, diplomatic correspondences, and mission briefings, on top of gate duty, which isn't even supposed to be my job. Kenji didn't know much about Genta, only what he'd heard from Junpei in the short time they'd known each other. What's so special about him? I guess he did well handling that tariff dispute with the Land of Claw Daimyo's delegates, Junpei admitted. But I prepped all the groundwork. Kazuo even used my draft proposal. Meanwhile, Genta just presents it, and now he's the one traveling with him, he huffed. The head of foreign affairs doesn't just pick people at random. If Kazuo chose Genta, there was a reason, Kenji shrugged. Yeah, I know. He's always thinking ahead, considering every angle before making a decision, Junpei sighed. That's why I want to learn directly from him, not just assist from the background. They lapsed into silence for a moment, gazing at the rippling mirages over the sand dunes. Kenji spoke up again. At least you get to work with Kazuo. I barely see my captain these days. Junpei snorted. Your team doesn't report in. Kenji stretched his arms and winced. Oh, we do. Just long enough to drop off intel before getting sent out again. Junpei eyed him. You alright? Yeah, just sore. Just got back from a mission. Kenji rolled his shoulder, testing the stiffness. Had to do some recon on movements near the border. Junpei raised an eyebrow. Which border? Kenji hesitated. Can't say. Junpei clicked his tongue. You guys in intelligence are the most mysterious, besides Anbu. Orders are orders. Kenji gave a small shrug. Anyway, tensions are rising, and there's more work than people to handle it. Everyone's being pushed to do twice their usual workload, so we have to be extra efficient with every task. I barely had time to decipher the codes I got from my last mission before they threw me on gate duty. Well, at least now you get to rest your brain. Kenji was about to reply when something made him pause. He squinted into the distance, frowning. What? I'm sensing 3 people, about 5 kilometers out, heading this way. Judging from their chakra signatures, they're not from the land of wind, Kenji said, pointing in the 10 o'clock direction. Junpei stiffened. What else can you tell? Normally, both gate guards would be sensory-type shinobi, but due to a shortage, even non-sensors like Junpei had been pulled into stand watch. Kenji narrowed his eyes in concentration. Not sure where they're from, but it feels like 1 adult and 2 kids. Since Suna had fewer shinobi than the other major villages, each one was expected to excel. Kenji could sense chakra from several kilometers away, gauge its strength, and determine whether it belonged to an outsider. Without a word, the 2 guards shifted their stances, bracing for whatever was coming. Soon, 3 silhouettes emerged on the horizon. What the hell? Kenji, they're all just kids. The one in bright orange has chakra levels of an adult. Wait, no, greater than that. Kenji exclaimed. Who are they? Junpei murmured, scratching his head. Wow, look at that tall wall. That must be Suna. Naruto cheered. Encircling the village, the colossal sandstone wall stood as its first line of defense, limiting entry to a single narrow passage. Terraced platforms along the outer side provided vantage points for Suna's shinobi to repel invaders. Finally, I'm almost dead, Tuya groaned. Naruto, you're like a human compass. Kimaro marveled. Do you have a world map imprinted in your head? Well, actually, told me where to go. Kimaro blinked. You can talk to the 9-tailed fox. Yeah, he's my friend, Naruto smiled. They continued toward the entrance. What do we say to the guards? Kimimaro asked. A feeling of dread crept over Naruto. He had never really considered what would happen if Suna didn't welcome them. But it had been a gamble from the start, and after coming this far, there was no turning back. We say we wanna join Suna and become ninjas, Naruto answered simply. Why would they believe us? Tuya scoffed. Well, Tuya dragged a hand down her face in frustration. You're hopeless. I didn't come all this fucking way here just to get killed by some damn Suna ninjas. Kimimaro frowned, searching for a solid reason that would convince Suna's shinobi, but none came to mind. They arrived at the entrance, but no one was in sight. No guards. Kimimaro wondered out loud. Whoa, kids. Kenji and Junpei stepped out from the dark. Do you even know where you are? Is this the entrance to Sunagaku? We wanna join the village and become ninjas. Naruto declared. Join. Where are you from? Junpei asked. I'm from Konohagaku in the land of fire, Kimimaro's from the land of water, and Tuyuya's from, the land of earth, Naruto said, pointing at himself and his friends. Oh, and I'm Naruto. The two guards exchanged looks. Tuyuya lowered her gaze and mumbled, we're so dead. Kimimaro waited for them to make a move. You said one of them has abnormal chakra levels for a kid, right? They could be spies trying to get in, Junpei whispered to Kenji. Kenji looked baffled. I don't sense any fluctuations in their chakra, so they aren't lying. Kids shouldn't be able to make it here when even trained ninjas can't without knowing the exact location. Something's not right. Yeah, but they're not using transformation jutsu or genjutsu either. We should take them to the police and see what's going on. Okay, I'll take them there and be back soon, Junpei said with a nod. He turned to the three travelers. All right, kids, you're coming with me. The three children followed the guard through the long, narrow passage, the oppressive desert heat easing as they stepped onto compacted ground. Reaching the other end, they found themselves on a platform overlooking the village, a vast sprawl of cylindrical buildings, their weathered surfaces blending seamlessly with the arid landscape. They descended a flight of steps and walked down the avenue, passing clusters of tightly packed homes, the alleyways in between cast in deep shadow. The stucco houses flanking them had rounded forms and small, circular windows, architectural choices shaped by the relentless sun and unyielding desert winds. Naruto's eyes darted around, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. The structures were nothing like Konoha's wooden houses, they held a rugged, timeless beauty, as if they had risen naturally from the earth. Shinobi clad in Sunagaku's standard attire, designed for both camouflage and protection against the harsh climate, glanced their way as they passed. Civilians moved through the streets, their faces partially obscured by scarves and shawls, their earth-toned robes billowing slightly in the breeze. Finally, they stopped in front of a building to the left of the avenue. Junpei pushed open the door and gestured for the children to go in. Excuse me, we've got 3 foreigners from the village entrance who need questioning, he said to a passing ninja, who gave a curt nod before heading upstairs. Junpei led them into a bare, windowless room. A table stood at the center with 2 folding chairs on either side, while several more were folded and placed against the wall. He pulled 2 more chairs into position and said, sit here and wait, before returning to the door. A minute later, the door creaked open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man entered. The only visible part of his head was the right side of his face, which bore 2 distinctive red markings. The rest was concealed beneath a turban-like headpiece with a sheet draped over the left side. Junpei murmured something in the man's ear before leaving the room. The tall man walked over and lowered himself into the chair opposite the children, his dark, scrutinizing eyes making them shift in their seats. Moments later, the door opened again, admitting another man, this one with a wiry build and a thin mustache framing his upper lip. He took his place beside the table, leaning against the wall with arms crossed. I am Baki, head of the police department of Sunagaku, said the man sitting in front of them. How did you find this village on your own? It's easy to get lost in the desert. Well, sir, you probably won't believe me, but I have the nine-tailed fox sealed inside me. He gave me directions, Naruto answered. Baki's uncovered eye widened. What did you just say? Naruto gulped. Baki turned to the man beside him, as if confirming he hadn't misheard. The man looked equally surprised, but he shook his head and said, he isn't lying. Baki frowned and turned back. He leaned forward, studying Naruto intently. I heard you want to join Sunagaku and become a ninja here. State your reasons. Naruto glanced nervously at his friends. Tuya sent him a look that said it was too late to back out now. My village didn't treat me well, so I left, he answered honestly and directly. In no way would Konohagakure have let you escape, Baki said, his voice lower, brawny arms folded. Well, sir, they did. I ran through an unwalled part of the forest, and nobody came after me. Naruto shrugged, lowering his gaze as he clenched and unclenched his fists in his lap. That just proves how little I mattered to them. He wasn't sure how to feel about the fact that he might not have even been considered important as a weapon. Baki turned to the man beside him again. Fukashi, are you certain this kid is telling the truth? This time, the man frowned at Baki. If he weren't, I would have interrupted him. Sensing the tiniest chakra fluctuations is a difficult art that requires years of practice and experience, and I am the head of the intelligence department. Show some respect for my expertise, he said in a stern voice. Baki looked a little awkward. I'm sorry, he apologized to Fukashi, then turned back to Kimaro and Tuya. I want to hear from you too. Why did you leave your nations? My clan failed in an attack on Kurigakure. I am the only survivor, Kimimaro answered first. My homeland isn't a great place to live, either. I'm one of the many orphans who fled, said Tuya. I ain't lying, chief. It's as simple as that. We met by chance a few weeks ago, Kimimaro added. And decided to come here together. Baki pondered for a moment. Of all the ninja villages in the 5 great nations, only the village hidden in the sand was truly hidden, due to how difficult it was to navigate the vast desert. If these kids had made it here, the most plausible explanation was that the tailed beast had guided its Jinchuriki. But even then, could a tailed beast really be so cooperative? From what he knew of Gaara, I shall report this to Kazekage-sama. Please tell Toji to come and keep an eye on the kids, Baki said to Fukashi. Can you give us some food and water? I'm starving, Tuya asked. Baki gave Fukashi a slight nod, and Fukashi nodded back before exiting the interrogation room. Seated in another mostly empty room, the 3 children munched on bread. Toji sat cross-legged in the far corner, watching them skeptically. A faint stubble shadowed his jaw, and a prominent nose gave his face a hawkish look. Naruto tried to ignore his disdainful stare, wondering if the guy saw them as spies or just nuisances. Shrimp, if you get us killed because of all this, I'm not letting it go in the afterlife, Tuya muttered, glaring at Naruto. He forced a smile at her. Seemed like the old Tuya.